Hi and welcome again to the next video in this short series on resilience. So today I'm going to talk a little bit around threat focus. So we're going to carry on from some of the stuff around that we spoke to about decision fatigue when I spoke about making a lot of decisions or the energy for decisions, and the energy for a cognitive function. As that gets depleted, then our ability to make good decisions or avoid decisions. So now I'm going to talk a little bit around how that impacts our threat focus. So we're very much a threat-orientated survival machine. So as our vigilance goes up for survival, we focus more on threats, and we're really good at picking up threats within our environment, or what we sort of talk as like cues or stimulus or patterns that indicate that there's a threat. And again, this is just a perception. So, and our perception of what a threat is based on our experience from when we were younger. So everyone's got a different indication of what a threat is. So when we talk thousands of years ago, a threat might have been not being able to eat. So going hungry or starvation was a constant fear, and that represented as a threat to going to food, where now we sort of got to the point where food is being delivered to us all the time, so that's no longer a threat. So we're looking for other things to occupy this threat attention that we have. So when we sort of talk about threat, I'm not going to go into anxiety itself, but when we are anxious or we perceive pressure and that creates subsequent anxiety, we become very good at locking onto threats quite early. And then we have a real inability to shift from those threats. So a lot of the stuff that we see now is sort of those social interactions where we're interacting with another person, whether that be in an office, whether that be within the community, whether that sort of be in a law enforcement or a first responder environment, or whatever your sort of occupation or domain is. There's always that person-to-person interaction. So if we're anxious when we go into that, we're going to see more threat stimulus or more threat cues in the non-verbal communication with that person, around their movements, their gestures, the tone of their voice, the words they use. We're looking for threat, and anything that we deem as sort of neutral, we're going to classify as a threat anyway, because we're very sort of negative biased or threat biased, especially as we get anxious, and we lock onto that very early, and it's hard for us to shift our focus away from these threats, and we look for more threats to actually look for the really relevant information we need often to solve this problem or make decisions or complete this task that we're trying to do. The other one is fatigue as well. So when we are fatigued, so when our energy levels are down, or we're sleep deprived, or we're in a state where we've made a lot of these cognitive decisions and we're cognitively fatigued, our threat response goes up, so our vigilance goes up, because we want to make sure that we're able to survive through the end of the day, so then we can get our recovery. So again, you're going to pick up more threats within your environment than what you normally would, just because you're fatigued. And the last one is sort of carryover from any interaction that we have is negatively, or sort of or threat residue. So if we have an altercation or an interaction or somewhere where our vigilance goes up, we have to respond, and we have some sort of conflict or a difficult task or some adversity or something like that, we carry that over. So there's a period of lag before the hormones that were useful to raise our threat response actually start to dissipate. So they have sort of their own set half-life sort of thing, where after a certain time there's only half of that hormone left. So they can carry on, and during that lag we're still primed to look for threats. So even though we've resolved that situation, anything that happens within a certain time period, we're going to see threats. So if we have a really negative interaction with someone in the office or in our social environment or within whatever your domain is, any interaction that you have for this period while those hormone or that threat response is elevated, again you're going to see threats. So we're going to carry residue or threat lag carryover from one scenario or situation into our next. So we need to be aware that once we've finished with that conflict or that scenario, we need to create some space so that we can allow that threat response to down regulate, or we can regulate our level of arousal before we go into the next one. Otherwise, again, we're just going to pick up on threats that may not be there because we're threat biased or that negative biased. So we're looking for threats so that we can sort of be prepared, because we think we're probably going to be in conflict again. So if we can understand that a lot of what we see as negative within our environment could be just because we're under anxiety, or it could be because we've got low levels of energy, or we've been depleted, we haven't recovered enough, and we're under that level of fatigue, or it could be because we've just had a situation that we're trying to recover from. So I hope that sort of goes and helps you a little bit around sort of the threat response type of thing. And when we're under those situations where we do have a threat focus, our resilience goes down as a result, because now we just want to get out of this situation that could sort of be adverse for us. So that impacts our level of resilience and our ability to sort of think clearly and look for the right information to come to the decisions that we need to get the outcome that we want. So I hope that sort of helps. I hope that sort of ties in a little bit with some of the other topics that we've spoken about. As always, if you've got any questions, feel free to reach out. Always happy to answer. I hope you're enjoying the series, and I look forward to the next presentation.